Gentlemen, it's 1 p.m. and we're going to call this afternoon's meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee to order. If I could have a motion to adopt the agenda. Mayor Elmsley, Member Barkwell, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Is there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we will move right into item number 3, public meeting reports. As required under the Planning Act, a public meeting is being held prior to the committee making a recommendation on these applications. All recommendations that come out of this afternoon will be forwarded to the next regular council meeting on February the 24th. The purpose of this public hearing is to allow the committee to gather information on the applications before us, to hear those wishing to make submissions on applications, and to allow the committee to ask questions of the applicants, interested parties, and staff. Everyone speaking today is requested to state their name for the public record, and in the interest of time, the committee respectfully asks that you keep your comments to no more than 5 minutes. When the appropriate time comes after the planner makes their presentation, members of the public will be provided an opportunity to speak to any public meeting items on the agenda. At that point, please either unmute yourself and turn your video on or come to the podium and press the speak button to activate the microphone. So with that, we will start with item 3.1, Plan 2026-008, an application to amend the Township of Mariposa zoning bylaw 94-07 at 730 the Glen Road, Woodville, Morris. Mr. Fraser, you want to go ahead?
Hi, it's Miss Fraser. Can you all see my
screen? My apologies.
All good, all good. Everyone can see my screen okay?
Yep, we can.
Perfect. So my name is Aaliyah Fraser, and I am the planner on this file, speaking on behalf of the City of Kawartha Lakes. Today, as you mentioned, we are discussing an application for zoning bylaw amendment at 730 the Glen Road in Mariposa. In this case, the applicant has requested to rezone the property from environmental protection to rural residential 1 to correct a historical technical mapping error and recognize the existing residential use. This staff report is being presented and received for recommendation today. This is the site, as you can see on Appendix A, the location map. The relevant site details are as follows. The subject lands have a lot area of approximately 1 acre, and they are accessed via an existing driveway that has a frontage of approximately 61 meters on the Glen Road. As I mentioned, the existing uses on the subject lands include a single detached dwelling and accessory structures. Surrounding uses include, to the north, agricultural uses, to the east, another single detached dwelling, to the south, a woodland and a watercourse, and to the west, that same woodland and watercourse. So the subject lands are designated prime agricultural in the City of Kawartha Lakes Official Plan 2012, and they are currently zoned environmental protection under the Township of Mariposa zoning bylaw. The applicant is proposing to rezone the subject lands to rural residential type 1 to permit the existing residential use on the property. At this time, there is no development proposed as part of the zoning bylaw amendment, as it seeks to correct a technical mapping error. So the details of this mapping error is that the property was zoned open space under the former Township of Mariposa zoning bylaw 7817. The former township issued a letter to the owner's solicitor in 1992 stating that the subject lands appeared to be zoned rural residential type 1. Unfortunately, no change in zoning was made at that time. When the former zoning bylaw was repealed and replaced by the current zoning bylaw, the subject lands were zoned environmental protection instead of rural residential type 1. Therefore, it appears that the technical mapping error was effectively carried forward from the former zoning bylaw into the current zoning bylaw. However, due to the nature of the application, staff are proposing to rezone the subject lands to rural residential type 1, exception 14. This exception would codify the existing lot area, lot frontage, yard setbacks, lot coverage, and gross floor area for the existing lot and single detached dwelling. And it would make it so that future development of the property beyond the existing conditions would require a further Planning Act application and appropriate review. And I'll just show you that existing dwelling and its setbacks on this Appendix C. No comments from the public were received ahead of this meeting. In the opinion of planning staff, including myself, the proposal complies with the intent of the provincial policy statement, the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan, and the Township of Mariposa comprehensive zoning bylaw. The City of Kawartha Lakes official plan recognizes existing uses as permitted within the prime agricultural designation provided they existed prior to the adoption of the plan. And the proposal would not constitute a loss of prime agricultural lands because they have not been used for agriculture for at least 30 years. And the current lot size and grade would also prevent the property from being used for agriculture in the future. The existing conditions on the subject lands generally comply with the provisions of the existing site configuration, but the site-specific zoning would recognize the existing conditions while maintaining the requirements for appropriate review for any future development. Therefore, staff recommend rezoning the subject lands under the site-specific rural residential type 1 exception 14 zone. So to summarize, staff respectfully recommend that report, Plan 2026-008, application to amend the Township of Mariposa zoning bylaw 94-07 at 730 The Glen Road, Woodville, be received. That a zoning bylaw amendment respecting application D06-2025-021, substantially in the form attached as Appendix D, be approved and adopted by council, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the documents required by the approval of this application. Thank you.
Thank you for the report, Ms. Fraser. Committee, any questions of planning staff at this time? Councillor Warren?
Yeah, through you, not to speak against it, I was just wondering why it was zoned environmental protection after the original zoning.
So the letter was received in 1992 from to the solicitor from the chief building official of the Township of Mariposa at the time, stating that the property appeared to be zoned rural residential 1, but in the zoning bylaw, it was erroneously zoned open space. So then that open space zoning was carried forward into environmental protection in the current zoning bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions of planning staff? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Does the applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak to the application?
Good afternoon, it's Tom DeBoer with TD Consulting. I just want to thank planning staff to get through this. We've been trying to sell this property, and in doing so, the financial component could not be mortgaged due to the EP designation that we found by accident, unfortunately. So we're just looking to correct this matter and move forward. So if there's any questions, please feel free.
Any questions of Mr. DeBoer? Everybody good? Great, thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to speak to this application? Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to this application? Calling a third and final time, anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Seeing and hearing none. Committee, your recommendation to council. Member O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, I move the recommendation that the report application to amend the Township of Mariposa zoning bylaw 94-07, and that's 730 Glen Road, Woodville, Morris be received, and that zoning bylaw amendment respecting application D06-2025-021 substantially in the form of the attached Appendix D to report Plan 2026-008 to be approved and adopted by council, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the documents required by the approval of this application.
Thank you. Seconder, Mayor Elmsley, calling the question. All in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Thank you. That brings us to item 3.2, Plan 2026-009, an application to amend the Village of Fenelon Falls zoning bylaw 89-25 at 14 Francis Street East, Fenelon Falls, Jan's Group, Inc. Mr. Caldeira, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Julio Sarti Caldeira, and I am the planner for this file. And today we're discussing an application for a zoning bylaw amendment at 14 Francis Street East in Fenelon Falls. The purpose of the application is to recognize conditions by allowing existing residential units on the ground floor and modifying a few site layout and floor area requirements. The staff report is being presented and received for recommendation today. The subject lands are approximately 468 square meters in area. The frontage of the lot is on Francis Street East and with 14.9 meters. And the subject lands are occupied by an existing two-story building with 4 apartment units and a retail store. Surrounding uses include low-rise mixed-use buildings to the north, a parking lot to the south, commercial units to the east and to the west. The subject lands are designated urban settlement area in the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan. And the subject lands are zoned general commercial under the Fenelon Falls zoning bylaw. The applicant is proposing to allow residential units on the ground floor and to address deficiencies in lot frontage, setbacks, and minimum gross floor area. No development is being proposed as part of this application. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is needed because the current zoning does not permit residential units on the ground floor. It only allows them on upper stories. And also, the existing conditions do not comply with the site layout requirements, namely lot frontage, interior side yard setback, street centerline setback, and front yard setbacks. Also, it does not comply with minimum floor area requirements, which apply to one of the 2-bedroom dwelling units. A single comment from the public inquiring about the nature of the application was received on January 22nd, 2026. Staff responded to the inquiry and received no further comments. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject lands to the general commercial exception 6 zone, shown as C1-6 on the screen. The proposal represents good land use planning by recognizing existing dwelling units and complies with applicable policies and with the general intent of the general commercial zone. The residential units on the ground floor do not negatively impact the surroundings of the property. The requested changes in lot frontage and minimum area for a 2-bedroom dwelling unit are minor in nature and are aligned with the general intent of the zoning bylaw. And finally, the request relief in front, interior side, and street centerline setbacks seek to recognize a condition that has existed without interruption since the building was originally constructed. Staff respectfully recommend that the zoning bylaw amendment respecting application D06-2025-022 substantially in the form attached as Appendix D to report Plan 2026-009 be approved and adopted by Council. Thank you.
Thank you for the report, Mr. Caldeira. Committee, any questions of planning staff at this time? Member Barkwell?
Just through you, just on the one of the handouts you gave, page 6, refers to the EIS. And I tried to find that earlier and I couldn't find it. What's the EIS study area?
Page 6 you mentioned of the report?
Page 6 of your report, in the green, it says that was G3 on the secondary plan. And I just wondered how that affects that being a study area. I'm not familiar with that.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I'm on page 6 of the report.
Of your handout here, I think it says.
I think the difference, I don't know whether, does he have that, Joel, do you know? This is the planner's report, not the planning staff's.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah, that's from the client's planner.
oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. I'll ask the question later.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions of planning staff at this time? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Does the applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak to the application?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of council, city staff, and the public. My name is Jim Kotsopoulos. I am the planning agent on behalf of the owner.
Good afternoon. You can go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chair, I do just have just to augment a few comments. I don't have anything further to add. It was a very eloquent presentation from city staff, and I appreciate that very much. And I don't want to be repetitive here for the sake of time, but I just want to reiterate just some very salient points in terms of the merits of this application. The city's official plan calls for a full range and mix of housing types, while also promoting access to appropriate housing forms within an established community, like we're currently in for the subject lands. The provincial planning statement supports a full range of housing types and promotes housing choices for all segments of the population. And we feel, Mr. Chair, that the additional units proposed here would fulfill that goal. As you heard from staff, the application represents gentle residential intensification, which optimizes the full use of existing land and infrastructure without altering the building's footprint and massing, which we are not doing, as you heard from staff. The proposal ensures, Mr. Chair, the retention of the property's commercial use as well, and accessibility from Francis Street, allowing the continuation to support local commerce, which the commercial portion of this development does. And Mr. Chair, I believe one of the councilors was asking about the EIS. This is under a regulated area from the Kawartha Lakes Conservation Authority, and they have reviewed this application in detail. And their comments back, Mr. Chair, was that they don't have any concerns, Kawartha Conservation, and that no permit of any sort is necessary, because we are not developing anything other than legalizing an existing situation. So, Mr. Chair, those are my comments, and I thank you very much, and I thank city staff for all their support.
Thank you. Member Barkwell, did that answer your question?
Yes, it does, but I have an additional, if I might just.
Go ahead.
Because this is general commercial, my understanding is that that is for commercial on the main floor and residential upstairs. So this is the exception that you're asking for, is to allow for some residential on the main floor. I'm okay with that, but I just wonder, can you switch back easily, or does that have to come back to us if somebody wants to do commercial on that? Because it is a commercial area, we'd like to maintain that. Question is, that I stated earlier was just because it's still remaining general commercial, because the exception is to allow for some housing, residential. If somebody wishes to take one of those residential units and make it commercial because it's still general commercial, can they do that without having to come back and have it switched over? So it can just be, go back to commercial.
Maybe Director Barry, are you able to answer that question for the member?
Thank you for the question through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that is the intention, is not to be overly restrictive with the zoning. We'll ensure that the bylaw just adds the permission for residential uses on the ground floor to legalize them, but doesn't prohibit commercial from being reinstated.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Is there any further questions from committee of the applicant? Councillor Warren?
I was just going to move the recommendation.
We're not there yet.
Okay.
Any committee is good? No further questions of the applicant? Okay. So that brings us, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? You can come forward to the podium.
Hi there. My name is Jennifer Phillips. I am one of the tenants in the building, so I don't know everything that you do for processes here, but just respectfully, I do love my apartment, and I hope everything goes as planned. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak to the application? Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Calling a third and final time. Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Seeing and hearing none. Committee, your recommendation to council? Councillor Warren?
That report plan 2026-009, application to amend the Village of Fenelon Falls zoning bylaw 89-25 at 14 Francis Street East, Fenelon Falls, Jan's Group, Inc. be received, that a zoning bylaw amendment respecting application D06-2025-022 substantially in the form attached as Appendix D to report plan 2026-009 be approved and adopted by council, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the documents required by the approval of this application.
Thank you. Seconder for the motion, Deputy Mayor Richardson. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Thank you. That brings us to item 3.3, Plan 2026-010, an application to amend the Township of Somerville zoning bylaw 78-45 at 87 Nevison Drive, Norland. Ms. Watson, go ahead.
Oh, good day. Thank you. First of all, can you hear me? And second of all, can you see my screen?
Yes and yes.
Thank you so much. So yes, good day. My name is Amanda Bree Watson. I am the planner for this file. As you noted, today we are discussing an application for a zoning bylaw amendment at 87 Nivison Drive in Somerville. The applicant is proposing to recognize and permit the existing structures on the property, which include a cabin, bunkie, a gazebo, as well as the opportunity for future expansion of that existing cabin. This report is being presented and received for informational purposes only. Just for context, if you're not familiar, the property is bound by the Gull River along the southern boundary, and it is accessed through a private road off of Highway 45, which is about a 10-minute drive from Norland. The subject property is 1.10 hectares in size, or about 2.72 acres. As noted, the private road is Nevison Drive, and there is potable water from the Norland Public Water Station, but there is no water services tied to this property, and sanitary services are provided via a privy, or what some may call an outhouse, into a grey water pit. As the lands are located next to the Gull River, they are within a wetland and within the Northland Intake Protection Zone, or the IPZ. The lands are essentially being used as recreation and as a personal sanctuary, and the surrounding lands to the north are vacant. To the east, there is a residential house and some more vacant lands. To the south, again, is Gull River, and to the west is Gull Lake. Let's see if I can make my slides move now. Ooh, okay, sorry, that was supposed to be up to provide you a little bit more context, and I don't know if you can see my mouse, but in the future pictures, we're really looking at a chunk of the property. The future maps don't show the L part, just for your reference as we go forward. And put a star there to kind of reference that area, which is in the waterfront land use designation. And the next map shows the zoning, which is a combination of limited service residential, which is the darker shade, and the general rural, which is the lighter shade, both within the Somerville zoning bylaw. And as I mentioned, this is the Gull River, and this is a section of the property that is being used. The property boundary does extend beyond this image. Again, the applicant is proposing to rezone a portion of the land from the limited service residential to an exception zone that would permit the continued use of these buildings, structures on the site. Noting that there would not be a primary residence, which is the exception to the bylaw currently. Under the LSR zoning, accessory structures are not permitted unless a primary dwelling unit is established. Current regulations require a cabin to be an accessory to a primary residence, a condition at this time which has not been met. At the time of writing my report, there were no comments provided from the public. However, I believe in your package is an email that was received from a neighboring landowner who did raise some concerns. And I will not read that unless you need me to, because I think it's in your package. All that being said, at this time, staff are not in a position to make a recommendation. We are asking for a planning justification brief, specifically to address the proposal's misalignment with the LSR zone, and also to demonstrate how the proposal complies with the provincial planning policy and the city's official plan. Again, because there is no primary dwelling to serve as the fixed reference point, having setbacks from existing structures must also be formalized through this site-specific zoning application, should it proceed. I do believe we have received comments from most of the agencies and city departments with no major concerns. And once the items have been addressed, we would like to bring back the application to PAC with recommendations. Thank you for your time, and I am prepared for any questions. And I do understand the applicant is there with you today.
Thank you for the report, Ms. Watson. Committee, any questions of planning staff? Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Just for clarification, just based on some of the comments, why is it appropriate to recognize multiple accessory structures on a property without a primary residence?
Thank you, and through the chair, that is part of what we're asking for in the planning justification brief.
So it won't, does it impact future development then?
It depends on how that site-specific bylaw is written. I would, at this time, suggest, in line with the official plan and the zoning, we do keep a primary residence as a permitted use, because that is in keeping with the overarching goals and visions for this area.
Councillor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Chair. would the owners be willing to increase the size of their cabin to make it into a primary residence? In that way, also getting a proper septic system so you don't have a dry well and a privy and that sort of thing. So could it be expanded into a primary residence?
Are you looking for an answer from the applicant
Yes,
or planning staff?
Yes.
Okay, so when the applicant comes up, you could ask that question, Councillor Warren. Okay,
Or their planner. Yes, their planner.
so your question to the planner then is if that was allowed, or whether she would recommend that be the case. Is that your intent?
Yeah.
Okay, Ms.
And then it
Watson, do you
would
understand
not be a
what Councillor
problem.
Warren's after?
Yes, and through the chair, thank you, Councillor. That would be something we would be, I think, supporting and in agreement with. To my knowledge, with the other planners that have assisted with this file, at this point, I don't think that the landowner is interested in that, but I don't want to speak for them. I do believe they are there today.
Thank you. I'll ask
Okay.
that question to the landowner.
Okay, thank you. Committee, any further questions to Ms. Watson at this time? Member Barkwell?
I guess I'm not following very well through you. The request is to change this to LSR, or it is LSR, but you're asking that the exception be that they can build a cabin that doesn't meet the qualifications of a building on the LSR. Is that what the request is?
Again, if I may, Mr. Chair, thank you. So yes, the existing structures on the property are deficient and do not comply with the current zoning bylaw. The method to remedy this is seeking a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment that would recognize that those remain and continue to be used as they are. If the idea were to change it to a primary dwelling, then the request for this zoning bylaw amendment would not be required. It would comply with the current zoning bylaw. So again, without speaking on behalf of the landowner, this is the situation we are in with trying to bring the existing use into compliance.
Thank you. We look forward to coming back. Thank you.
Any further questions of planning staff? Committee is good. Great. Thank you. That brings us, does the applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak to the application?
Good afternoon to all those present. I appreciate your, Ryan Meunier, I'm sorry. That's my name. Was supposed to start with that. I appreciate you hearing this matter. Right away after hearing the first two, I'm a bit concerned because I can already sense the friction of what's, going on with my land versus the previous two. And I've thought a fair bit about what I'm going to say here, and I've had one person in particular say, don't make things worse, Ryan, but, and I don't intend to. All I really got to try to clarify here is what I'm trying to do is just exist on my land as the owner, which I thought I was the owner. I keep calling into question whether or not I do own this land, to use it in a way that's in line with my beliefs, in line with protecting our home, in line with supporting future generations. That's all I'm trying to do. So I have 3 acres, I have about 1,000 trees, I have a mountain, I have a river, I have a wetland. It's thriving, it's in my report, the ecosystem that's thriving. I've done nothing to harm it. Everything I built has been built out of salvaged material. And a city staff member could come and look at what I've built. I haven't just thrown a few things together that'll fall down. No, I followed proper building procedures. I built it with my hands. I don't have electricity. I cut the 2x10s that are in the floor with a handsaw. I did it all by hand with salvaged material. I spent $175 to build my cabin. What's being discussed is I should build a primary dwelling of 645 square feet or something. I don't need that. I don't need that. I've asked to expand it up to what's a hunt camp. And the reason I did that, Miss Barry suggested that early on in this. She said, why don't you just rezone it as a hunt camp? I know there's not officially a hunt camp designation, but that's where I picked 45 meters. And if you look at my application, I've even said in that I'll do it within the existing footprint established by the trees. I have not cut a tree down. My concern here, and in a lot of cases with government, is, you know, to me it's become way more complicated, too expensive, too bureaucratic, too excessive for anything we want to do, just as human beings who are looking out for the future. So everyone here is charged with acting in the best interests of society, the public. Well, what I'm doing is that. What I've been doing all along is that. And at the same time, it feeds my soul. It makes me the best version of me. It lets me take care of my family. It lets me provide public service to those in my community. And at the same time, I'm protecting our home. I'm not buying into, I'm cutting trees down. I'm pouring a foundation. I'm going to wreck habitats, tiny habitats that are all part of the big picture. I don't want to do that, and I don't feel I should have to. And I don't know why an agency that's been charged with serving the public, been elected by me to work for me, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, why any agency that's been charged with that in that role would then try to force me to damage our one and only collective home. It's a contradiction to public service. You know, to me, it ends up being a violation of my rights. And, you know, I want a resolution to this matter. I can tell now, I realize, I thought today I'd be maybe walking out of here knowing one way or the other. And I'm prepared to proceed either way. But I feel like, no, I was getting ahead of myself. But I've been working on this for 3 years. I don't want to build a home. I don't need a home. My neighbor, maybe who complained, I don't really know, I've tried to get along, has about a 3,500 square foot property that they rent out for $6,000 a week as an Airbnb. The air conditioner runs, you know, the footprint they're making. They cut down a bunch of trees. I'm not here to bash them. That's the way they want to live. The government's okay with that, but it's not okay with how I want to live. And I think how I'm living is actually protective of everyone in this room. If you got kids, if you've got grandkids, it's protective of them. That's why I'm doing this. And I'm only going with what I need. That's how I live my life. I go with what I need. And I don't think I should be forced into having more than I need. I don't know how my time is. Maybe I'm getting close. But there were a couple things I would like. I think I've said what I have to say in terms of why I'm doing what I'm doing. But there were a couple things I'd like to read to just make it public here, although I do need my glasses. Sorry. I'm still having a hard time planning to have these with me all the time. Anyways, so this is from my application. So is there any other information that you think might be useful to the city or other agencies in reviewing this application? If so, explain below or attach a separate page. So this was submitted with my application. It may be useful to the city or other agencies as they review this application to remain cognizant that approval of this zoning amendment application supports my right to use my land according to my personal culture beliefs, which may differ from those of society at large. Government at all levels has an obligation to respect and support the individual cultures of all members of society it serves, providing they are not harmful to others. My personal culture, as unique as it is, harms no one. Therefore, not approving this application to permit the continued use of my land according to my personal culture would be an act of discrimination toward me by the city and or other agencies involved in this bureaucratic process. And our connection to the natural environment, it transcends that. It transcends all this political stuff. You know, I'm getting up there, and there are people on council who are a few years ahead of me. You have to be honest and say you've seen the changes. You can think about, I've been coming to this area for 35 years. I go to a place in Inglesby. I've been going there since I was a teenager. It still doesn't have running water. That's kind of what I was exposed to, and I'm fine with that. And I don't know why that's such a big deal for someone who wants to connect with nature. What I'd like to end with, and I must be really close to my time, is this. Is freedom to live according to beliefs or freedom of conscience and religion is the fundamental human right to hold personal convictions, religious, philosophical, or otherwise, and manifest them in practice, worship, teaching, and observance, privately or publicly, without fear of coercion or penalty. The core components are the absolute freedom to hold any belief and the right to express these beliefs through actions. Legally and philosophically, restrictions are permissible only when necessary to prevent serious harm or infringement on the rights of others, not for mere disagreement or social discomfort. This has evolved to include non-religious convictions, recognizing that societal harmony is better served by tolerance than informed uniformity. And practically, this means being able to live by your moral code in daily life without government interference or social reprisal. And that's all I'm asking for, is to just keep on going on this piece of land that I feel I am the steward of, and I will do nothing to harm it, and I will do nothing to harm the interests of any of my neighbors. And I think that must be 5 minutes, but thank you. I'll answer any questions you have happily.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Meunier. Committee, any questions? Councillor Warren?
Through you, I have actually a question to Director Barry, if I may.
Okay.
So could there be an official plan amendment to lower the size limit on a primary residence? Or is that, solid, it can't be changed whatsoever?
Yeah, thanks for the question, and through the chair to the councillor, size isn't really the issue with respect to the amendment, regardless of the official plan or the zoning. It's a component of one of the regulations. The issue primarily is that there's not a primary permitted use. So it's the fact that there's not a single detached dwelling in accordance with the zoning. So Mr. Meunier has indicated that he would be willing to expand the size to comply with currently what the regulations indicate would be akin to a structure in a hunt camp type of use. And I will underscore, and Mr. Meunier correctly pointed out, in another township bylaw, because currently in the subject bylaw, there isn't a like use. But when evaluating, especially unique land uses, existing land uses or proposals unique that aren't common or regulated by the zoning, that's very common practice, is to look across the city at all the different zoning bylaws to see comparable or like uses when contemplating or evaluating proposed amendments. So again, just to repeat, it's not the size that cannot be amended. It certainly can be. It's primarily that Mr. Meunier is not currently interested in converting one of the existing structures or building a new structure that would be used as a dwelling unit, which is defined in the bylaw to have sanitary and cooking conveniences within the structure.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Warren?
I'll have to ruminate on that. I'm not sure where we go with that. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, Member Nguyen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'd like to pose a question to the owner. Are you currently using the cabin right now as your primary residence, or is this just an occasional recreational use?
Well, no. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that question. No, I'm not. You know, I've been honest about this right from the onset. I think Miss Barry has heard this. Certainly Mr. Hawley did before he retired. Was the problem I have is a very good problem, and that's I have a home in Guelph that I'm kind of sad to leave, but I look forward to getting to Norland. And then when I leave Norland, I'm kind of sad to leave, but I look forward to getting home. So I spend about 40%, 30% of my time in the cabin. I came from the cabin today. So I spend about 3 days a week there, you know, on average. And I kind of intend to keep doing that because I don't see the beautiful things in my life in Guelph suddenly disappearing. And the examples I have are of my hobbies, a woman who often doesn't like me, but still always loves me, my grandkids, my kids. I got all those things in Guelph. But then in Norland, what I got is 3 acres of solitude, you know, and I never found a companion so companionable as solitude. I didn't say that, but it is a beautiful place to be that feeds my soul. I just want to keep on the way I'm going because it's honestly beautiful. And the only interference I've had in this life that I'm living is bureaucracy. I don't say that, I'm not saying that disrespectfully, but that's really what it is. So no, my intention is not to live there at this time. But as I said to Mr. Hawley, I think he asked me the same question. I said, but you know, you never know. I may not even be here tomorrow. So, you know, that's the way life is.
Can I just ask a follow-up question? So if you're not using that as a primary residence, and you are really using it as a hand camp, which is a recreational activity or use that is currently permitted under the existing bylaw, did somebody from the city tell you that you have to take these down? Like, how did this process get started?
I do not, thank you for that question. I do not know exactly how it came about, other than I did not feel welcome from the moment I arrived there. And there was a complaint about some activities on my land from an Airbnb guest, my neighbor's Airbnb. And that complaint resulted in bylaw coming and seeing my structures. Mr. Yo visited me in the beginning of all this. And when he came in and he looked around, he said, yeah, well, yeah, there must have been a complaint because you can't see any of this. I'm just in the trees. So yeah, and from then on, it was 3 years of, I'm going to say harassment, but it was a push, you know, it's been a battle, a respectful battle between me and the city, and then eventually the province, which was then turning into, we're going to fine you $30,000 and seize your land over a cabin in the woods. And I said it to Miss Barry in one of our meetings. I said, isn't this a lot to be made about a man just trying to be in the woods, you know, and live based on just his fundamental nature? I think Miss Barry agreed. And I'm still amazed that I'm here. Like, I'm still going to go the course because I really, truly believe this is my right to do this. I think everyone in this room has that right too. And I do think that the government has to recognize that. But yeah, I think I've answered your question. It came from a complaint from somebody, I believe, who marches to the Develop and Money drum that I don't march to.
Member O'Reilly?
Mr. Chairman, I think we've heard everything here. I think this report's going to come back, right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Committee is good? Okay, thank you, Mr. Meunier.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Calling a third and final time. Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Seeing and hearing none. Committee, Mayor Elmsley.
The report plan 2026-010, application to amend the Township of Somerville zoning bylaw 7845 at 87 Nevison Drive, Norland, Munier, be received for information.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Member O'Reilly. Any discussion? Calling the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That just brings us down to item 3.4, Plan 2026-012, an application to amend the Township of Ops zoning bylaw 93-30 at 368 to 388 Angeline Street South, Nelson Way, Lindsay Melody Gardens, Inc. Mr. Alexander, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I am sharing my screen and okay, moment to hit full screen here. Thank you very much. So as mentioned, this is an application to amend the Township of Ops zoning bylaw for the property located at 368 to 388 Angeline Street South, Nelson Way in Lindsay. The recommendation at this point is for the report to be received for information. The applicant is seeking to develop a highway commercial use consisting of a one-story commercial building that you can see in gray, surrounded with on-site parking in this drawing. It includes a drive-through facility, 21 parking spaces, and 1 loading space. The zoning bylaw amendment is required to change the subject lands from agricultural support exception 8 to highway commercial with a site-specific exception to facilitate this proposal. The application also seeks to rezone the lands from agricultural, and that's the Township of Ops zoning bylaw. The application also has a proposed amendment to change the zoning from agricultural-related exception 124 in the City of Kawartha Lakes rural zoning bylaw in the event that it comes into effect pending the OLT decision, and would change that to commercial highway exception in the rural zoning bylaw. A little bit of context for this property. It was severed from the adjacent property, which is known as 354 Angeline Street South, via a consent application, and it was transferred to the owner of the lands to the immediate south. And so that is the property of 368 to 388. The official plan amendment, or the official plan designation, is rural under Schedule A3 in the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan. And I mentioned the zoning bylaw. It is currently agricultural support exception 8 in the Ops zoning bylaw and agriculture related exception 124 in the City of Kawartha Lakes rural zoning bylaw. The property is currently vacant, and this is the survey. This is the aerial view, so you can see the property is currently vacant. The application was received on December 22nd, 2025, so it's fairly recent. The application was deemed complete under the requirements of the Planning Act on January 9th and circulated to agencies on January 23rd, 2026. The requested review deadline was February 6th, 2026, but as of the writing of this report, we have not received comments on the application. This shows the official plan schedule for the property. Planning staff are currently reviewing the application submission package, including the planning justification report that was prepared and filed in support of the application for consistency with provincial policies, including the provincial planning statement, and for conformity with the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and the zoning bylaws. All written and verbal comments received through consultation will be considered as part of the application review. Notice was circulated to persons within 120-meter radius of the property. Agencies and city departments were also provided with notice. A summary of written and verbal submissions, including comments received at the public meeting, will be included in the subsequent recommendation report to PAC And staff, I don't believe I have another, this is the zoning schedule. Staff will return to PAC with a recommendation report once we've received all comments from commenting agencies and completed the review. If there are any concerns that have been raised, then we will also work with the applicant to try to resolve any concerns or issues. Interested parties will be notified of the subsequent PAC meeting. And I believe that's all I have in this presentation. And I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Alexander. Committee, any questions of planning staff at this time? Member Nguyen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. Can you please let us know where is the entranceway and where traffic will be flowing from in terms of, is there a driveway on Angeline, or is it Exhibition Drive, or is it Nelson Drive? Just want to get some clarity on that.
Yes, through you, Chair. The proposed entrance is through Nelson Way. And I believe yes, it is through Nelson Way. I can share the proposed site plan again if you like.
So are those private roads or public roads?
Nelson Way is the existing street now that goes to the McDonald's and the gas station that exists.
So is that a private road or a public road?
Yeah, it will be.
Public?
Yep, it's part of the development.
Okay, so you go around instead of coming off into it from Angeline. Got it. Thank you.
Any further questions of planning staff from committee? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Does the applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak to the application?
Yes, that would be me. Through the chair, are you able to hear me and see me all right?
Yes, we are.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Federico Palacios, and I'm a planner at the Biglieri Group. We're the planning consultants for the owners for the lands known as 368 to 388 Angeline Street South. And so we're going to be discussing the zoning bylaw amendment and site plan approval applications and their general intent. And the numbers for those files are just on that first slide there. If you want to go to the next slide, please. So this is a similar aerial that identifies the subject lands there in blue. It's generally at the southeast corner of Exhibition Drive and Angeline Street South. The Lindsay Agricultural Society lands are to the east. And then also the under construction Highway Commercial Plaza is just below the subject lands there to the south, which are under same ownership. Next slide, please. On this slide here, you'll see the subject lands are identified in red. So Exhibition Drive and Nelson Way, those are the two road conveyances that were created and conveyed to the city as part of the commercial development to the south of the subject lands. And that road conveyance is showed in the dash red lines there. And the subject lands were initially part of a larger parcel, the Lindsay Agricultural Society lands, which is shown in green on this map. However, the creation of those road conveyances, being Exhibition and Nelson, they effectively resulted in the subject lands becoming fully separated from that larger agricultural society parcel. So the subject lands were formally severed from the Agricultural Society lands in May of 2025, as mentioned previously, and were transferred rather to the owners of the commercial lands to the immediate south. Next slide, please. So here, this is just another slide showing the relationship between the subject lands, which are shown here in blue, and the rights of way conveyances, which are again in the dashed red. And then the under construction highway commercial parcel to the south of the site is shown in gray. So essentially the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application works to introduce zoning permissions that are aligned with what was previously approved for the under construction commercial lands, which again are in gray. And the site plan approval formalizes the site's functional layout. So next slide, please. This is the same site plan that was shown previously. So the planning applications serve to permit new restaurant and retail uses on the site. We're proposing just over 408 square meters of new gross floor area. There's a drive-through being proposed as well in the rear of the building, which runs parallel to Angeline. And the access, as discussed previously, will be via a private driveway that provides access through Nelson Way, which, as we mentioned, is a public right-of-way. And that's at the top of the screen there. There's 21 parking spaces provided, including 2 barrier-free, and we're respecting the 14-meter right-of-way, or sorry, setback along Angeline Street. And then next slide, please. This slide is just showing the relationship that exists between the proposed, the subject land and the proposed development and the under construction development to the south. So there's going to be connectivity through Nelson Way in that direction, which will effectively create a continuous commercial plaza from the Trans-Canada Highway to Exhibition Drive. And on the next slide, we presented a brief timeline. So as mentioned, the subject site was severed from the larger Lindsay Agricultural Society lands in May of 2025. These 2 applications, being the zoning bylaw amendment and the site plan approval applications, were submitted in December 2025 and deemed complete in December as well. And the statutory meeting is today. As mentioned by Matt Alexander, the municipal review by staff is ongoing, and we're expected to receive comments as well. We will be refining our approach and our application based on comments and staff discussions as required throughout 2026 is what we expect. And we hope that these applications will go to council for consideration and decision at some point this year as well. So just on the last slide, in summary, the 2 proposed applications, being the zoning bylaw and site plan approval applications, serve to establish consistent highway commercial zoning permissions from the Trans-Canada Highway to the south to Exhibition Drive in the north, creating a continuous commercial parcel along Angeline Street South. And these applications support increased commercial and economic activity in South Lindsay. And that slide has our information. For myself and my colleague Michael Testagutsa, we're the planners on behalf of the owner. And so here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that presentation. Committee, any questions? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Calling a third and final time. Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Seeing and hearing none. Committee, your recommendation to council. Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. That report plan 2026-012 application to amend the Township Ops zoning bylaw 93-30 at 368-388 Angeline Street South, Nelson Way, Lindsay, Melody Gardens, Inc. be received for information.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Ashmore. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Thank you. And with that, this public meeting being held under the Planning Act is now adjourned. And we will move into item 4, deputations, which I believe there are none. Item 5, correspondence. Joel, no correspondence. Brings us to item 6, regular and returned reports. 6.1, Plan 2026-011, applications to amend the Kawartha Lakes official plan and Town of Lindsay zoning bylaw 2000-75 with draft plan of subdivision at Block 72, Plan 57M-797, Logie Street, Lindsay. Mr. Alexander, you want to give us an update or a summary of where we are?
Yes, sir. Through you, Chair, I have a presentation, and I'll go over the recommendations. This is correct. Oh, that's the wrong one. This is a view of the subject land for the property, Block 72, Plan 57M, 797 Logie Street. This is a returning application. The recommendation is to receive the report and to approve and adopt the proposed official plan amendment, to approve and adopt the zoning bylaw amendment, and for the draft plan of subdivision and attached conditions to be referred to council for approval and adoption. The applicant submitted applications for an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision to redesignate and rezone the lands located here at Concession 6, part of Lot 18, Block 72, Plan 57M 797. The proposed development is for 40 townhouse dwellings and 1 single detached dwelling to be located along a new public street. The subject lands are currently vacant, located east of Lindsay Street South and Logie Street intersection. The subject lands are designated institutions and community facilities under the Lindsay Secondary Plan and zoned community facilities in the Township of Lindsay zoning bylaw. However, in the time that they've been identified that way, no proposals and no development of that use has taken place. At the council meeting of the statutory public meeting for these applications was held on January 17th, 2024. And the recommendation of PAC at that time was adopted by council on January 30th, 2024 to receive the report and to refer the application back to staff for processing and review. As you can imagine, official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, draft plan of subdivision, there were a lot of moving pieces to review and look at. Following the initial submission of the application, the Town of Lindsay official plan was repealed and replaced by the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and the Lindsay secondary plan. And so as a result, the original application to amend the Lindsay official plan was changed to an application to amend the Lindsay secondary plan. The subject land is located within the Lindsay built boundary, and the applicant proposes a draft plan of subdivision in keeping with what is intended for development within the built boundary, 40 townhouse dwellings and 1 single detached dwelling. Maybe I can move on to the next one. This is the proposed lot layout for the plan of subdivision. You can see it's divided into a number of blocks, block 2, 8, block 7, block 6, etc. This is where the townhouse properties would be located. And lot 1 at the north side, fronting on Logie Street, is the lot for the single detached dwelling. As part of the application, or to facilitate this development, a redesignation from institutions and community facilities to residential is required, and a rezoning from community facilities to a site-specific residential multiple 2 zone for the proposed townhouses, and a site-specific residential 2 zone for the proposed single detached lot are also required. The proposed development will be organized along a new public road. You can see it's a cul-de-sac that turns around in the property. The proposed development will have a density of approximately 25 dwelling units per gross hectare, which is within the limit for medium density residential under the secondary plan. The maximum height of the proposed dwellings will be 3 stories or 12 meters. The proposal includes 2 parking spaces per unit, as well as the ability for on-street parking in accordance with municipal bylaws. Pedestrian sidewalks will also be provided along the new street, including extending from Logie Street. In the time since the statutory public meeting in January 2024, the technical review of all of the submission materials has been completed, and all concerns have been addressed. A second and third submission of the application to address those comments and concerns have led to revisions that have addressed those concerns. The proposed official, so in reviewing the application, the proposed official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, draft plan of subdivision, and conditions are, in my opinion, all consistent with the provincial planning statement 2024. With regards to the official plan, the city directs that housing will be encouraged in existing settlement areas, such as this. It also encourages residential intensification in the built-up area and establishes development standards for new residential development and redevelopment, which this proposal meets. The official plan designates the subject lands as urban settlement, and the proposed development will use existing and planned municipal servicing infrastructure. The functional servicing and stormwater management report have been submitted, which indicate that servicing design is feasible for the development. And in my opinion, the proposal does conform with the city's official plan. The Lindsay secondary plan designates its institutions and community facilities, as mentioned, and the proposal is to redesignate this as residential. The redesignation is appropriate in this case, considering the subject lands have remained vacant as the surrounding area has developed into low-density residential. This will better align with the existing community context, support efficient land use, and enable more housing options on the municipally serviced lots. Medium-density residential uses are permitted through the secondary plan, subject to certain criteria, which the proposal meets. The secondary plan establishes criteria related to height and massing, minimized shadows, landscaping, parking, and waste collection, and these have all been addressed in the application. The limit of the maximum density permitted is, medium density residential uses are required to be between a minimum of 25 units per gross hectare to a maximum of 60, and the proposal is within those limits. Moving on to the zoning bylaw, the subject lands are currently zoned community facilities in the Town of Lindsay zoning bylaw, and the proposed rezoning would be a site-specific exception, or two different site-specific exceptions. The townhouse properties will be rezoned to a site-specific residential multiple 2, with exceptions related to minimum lot frontage, minimum front yard, minimum exterior side yard, minimum interior side yard, minimum rear yard, maximum lot coverage, and minimum landscaped open space. And so there are reductions to all of those minimums, and there's a slight increase to the proposed to the maximum lot coverage. The site-specific exception for the single detached dwelling also seeks to reduce the minimum front yard, exterior side yard, interior side yard, and to increase the maximum lot coverage by about 10%. Staff are of the opinion that the requested site-specific zoning relief is appropriate in this case, as the proposed townhouse development maintains the intent of the zoning framework while introducing minor and targeted adjustments. This advances both local and provincial objectives to provide a greater diversity of housing options within the existing communities. Approval of the applications would align with the strategic objectives of the city, strategic priorities, of the city, meaning with the exceptional quality of life by providing a diversity of housing options for the community. And it will help the city achieve its target of constructing 6,500 housing units by 2031. There are no financial considerations unless council's decision is appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Notice was distributed to residents within 120 meters of the site, and signage was placed on the site to notify passersby. The statutory public meeting was held January 16th, 2024, and the applications were circulated to agencies and city departments and followed up with each of the subsequent resubmissions. At the time of writing this report, no comments from the public were received. Comments from commenting agencies have indicated that through the revisions and multiple submissions, concerns have been addressed. So engineering has indicated they have no further comments. The Kawartha Conservation Authority states that all of their comments have been addressed with the exception of a requirement for detailed erosion and sediment control, which will be addressed through the fulfillment of the conditions of draft plan of subdivision, and they are satisfied with that approach. There are no concerns regarding sewage systems, building and septic, and our planning analysis has indicated that the application is consistent with the provincial planning statement and conforms with the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and the Lindsay secondary plan, and that the proposed zoning is appropriate. Therefore, in consideration of the comments and issues that have been raised and how they've been addressed, staff respectfully recommend that the official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision, together with the conditions, be referred to council for approval. I can take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander, for that detailed report. Committee, any questions of Mr. Alexander at this time? Everybody is good. Is there a motion in our future? Mayor Elmsley?
I did have a question, but I think it's for Ms. Barry. The minimum lot frontage, it says in RM2, the zone requirements for minimum lot frontage is 36 meters for a townhouse. That seems rather large. Should we be using another zoning other than RM2, or is there a reason why RM2 is 36, but we're going down to 6 for this particular build?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mayor, and through the chair. The frontage of that size is typically representative of, for example, rental units that would be on a single block and not being set up, for example, for future subdivision through what you may be familiar with hearing through like a part lot control exemption bylaw that would come to council at a future date. So when looking at the number of townhouse units that would fit within a block in a rental scenario, the zoning would dictate that it should be no smaller than 36 meters. Looking at this sort of in a vacuum, that's how I would address that question, Mr. Mayor. However, without looking at the sort of rest of the RM2 zone provisions, I wouldn't at this moment speak to any of the other potential reasons for why a different zone other than the RM2 could possibly also work. It does stay within what is intended for the unit typology, being a townhouse unit. And if you'll indulge, I'll invite my colleague, Mr. Alexander, to comment further if there's anything else in the RM2 zone that would suggest, why else it is appropriate. In our review of the various zones in Lindsay, it seemed spot on.
Through you, Chair, I don't have anything to add to that. I was looking through some of my files to see if there's a deeper explanation, but I'm not sure on the spot how to respond to that. Sorry.
I just wanted to make sure that the 36 meter per lot was not a typo and that it was a real thing and not something that should be corrected. So thank you.
Any further questions? Discussion, motion, Member O'Reilly?
I'll move the recommendations and you can read it as printed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, so that's a motion from Member O'Reilly. The recommendation is printed. Is there a seconder? Member Nguyen, any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. That brings us to item 6.2, engineering 2026-002, assumption of Cameron Estates subdivision. Manager Timms.
Don't blame him.
Good afternoon. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee. I am here today for the assumption of the Cameron Estates subdivision, which is a 20-lot subdivision in the former township of Fenland. The subdivision consists of Westlake Court, a stormwater management facility, conveyance channel, and an expansion to the existing Cameron Ballpark with 2 walkway connection blocks. The stormwater system was constructed and road construction was completed in 2005 and 2006. Following that, the subdivision was registered in 2007. In 2021, the city put the owner in default of the registered subdivision agreement, and we had a budget for the works to be completed. In 2025, as part of the city's budget, the city undertook a reconstruction project, completing culvert replacements, ditch excavation, and road works to bring up all the public services to a standard worth assumption. I'm here to answer any questions the committee may have.
Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Just wondering, when reading through this report, there seems to be a deficit. What would that deficit look like?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Deputy Mayor, it was a financial deficit of $380,411.20, which has been invoiced back to the owner.
Member Nguyen.
As a follow-up to that, has that been paid?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee member, at this time I do not believe it's been paid.
So what would be our next step in terms of trying to recover that amount?
I would have to defer to our legal team for next steps on cost recovery.
Okay, so can I ask another question? So if that's the case, why do we want to assume it now, subject, because it is, I understand deficiencies have been fixed by the municipality, but then there's this lien or this debt that's kind of hanging there. Why do we want to assume it then? At this time, at least.
The direction from the city solicitor was to proceed with assumption that it would not change the outcome. The direction from the city solicitor was to proceed with the assumption that it would not change the outcome.
Any further questions of Manager Timms? What are your wishes? Member Barkwell.
The report ENG 2025-002, Assumption of Cameron Estates Subdivision, be received, that the Assumption of Cameron Estates Subdivision, Geographic Township of Fenland, City of Kawartha Lakes, be approved, that the assumption of the bylaws substantially in the form attached as Appendix A to Report ENG 2025-002 be approved and be adopted by council, and that the mayor and the city clerk be authorized to execute any documents and agreements required for the approval of this application.
Seconder for the motion, Member O'Reilly. Any discussion? Calling the question. All in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Yep. Okay, so that carries. That brings us to item 6.3, Engineering 2026-003, Assumption of Ravines of Lindsay Estates Subdivision. Lindsay, Manager Timms.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee. Next up is the assumption of the Ravines of Lindsay subdivision, which is a subdivision of 146 lots here in Lindsay. The subdivision consists of Connolly Road, Hennessy Crescent, Hancock Crescent, a stormwater management facility, an emergency access block, and a walkway connection to the existing Joan Park. The subdivision was registered in 2020. The underground servicing to base course asphalt was completed in 2020, and the surface asphalt was placed in November 2024. We have now achieved the minimum 1-year maintenance period. We have met with Public Works to answer any questions or concerns they had in August of 2025, and we had Community Service Department perform an evaluation of all the street trees. We now feel we're in a position to proceed with assumption of the Ravines of Lindsay Estate subdivision. Once again, I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
All right, committee, any questions of Mr. Timms? Seeing none, Is there a motion anybody would like to make? Member O'Reilly?
I'll move the recommendation that the assumption of the Ravines of Lindsay Estate subdivision be received, and the assumption of the Ravines of Lindsay Estate subdivision geographic town of Lindsay, City of Coeur Lakes be approved. The assumption of bylaw substantial in the form attached as Appendix A to report ENG 2026-003 be approved and adopted by council, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any documents and agreements required by the approval of this application.
Seconder for the motion, Deputy Mayor Richardson. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. And that brings us to item 6.4, Engineering 2026-005, Assumption of Springdale Gardens Phases 3 and 4. Ops. Manager Timms. I think everybody's a little rusty, Manager Timms. We haven't seen some subdivision assumptions for a long time.
Yeah, hopefully have a few more this year. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee. The final assumption today is for Springdale Gardens Phases 3 and 4 in the former Township of Ops. It consisted of 71 lots. It is the final build out of the Springdale development. It includes Carew Boulevard, Burroughs Court, the extension of Lamb Avenue, and Lawson Avenue. The subdivision was registered in 2021, and the underground servicing to base course asphalt was completed in 2021. The surface asphalt was placed in October 2024, and we have now achieved the minimum 1-year maintenance period. Once again, we met with Public Works staff to answer any questions and concerns they had in August of 2025, and we had the Community Services Department perform an evaluation of all the street trees. Once again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions of Manager Timms at this time? Seeing none. Mayor Elmsley?
I'll give you a motion. That report ENG 2026-005, Assumption of Springdale Gardens Phases 3 and 4 Ops be received. That the assumption of Springdale Gardens Phases 3 and 4 Geographic Township of Ops, City of Kawartha Lakes be approved. That an assumption bylaw substantially in the form attached. Excuse me. As Appendix A to report ENG 2026-005 be approved and adopted by council, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute any documents and agreements required by the approval of this application.
Seconder for the motion, Councillor Ashmore. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Okay, and with that, that brings us down to item 7. Anyone? Motion for adjournment, Deputy Mayor Richardson, seconder. Member Nguyen, all in favor? Carries. And with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your time.